All right. Good morning and welcome on a beautiful, beautiful Easter morning. My name is Chris Mark, and I'm the host of this podcast, A Sniper's Perspective. It seems like everybody has a lot of interest in me talking about all things related to sniping, being a scout sniper. So I thought I would add to my last podcast about Scout Sniper School and add a little more color to what it's like to be a scout sniper, and specifically a sniper in where I served, which was Somalia. So I was fortunate to have served, like I said, in Somalia, and kind of a unique place to be. And it's kind of interesting. You'll notice that I've called this particular podcast "The Devils in Black Boots," and let me explain why. So when we went to Somalia in 1994, it was right after. If anybody's seen the movie Black Hawk Down, it may be a bit old for some of the people listening to this. So in 1993, October of 1993, they had a major firefight in Mogadishu. 18 Rangers and Delta Force operators were killed and 72 wounded when they went in to go get a guy named Mohammed Farah Adid, and they had killed by most accounts well over 1,000 Somali militiamen. And that firefight was horrible. There were two Delta Force snipers that received the Medal of Honor, the first medals of honor uh, given out since, or I hate to say given out, but awarded since Vietnam, and true heroes. So after that, President Clinton said, "We're going to withdraw all U.S. troops from Somalia." And so my Marine Operational Unit was sent over there and was tasked with providing overwatch and security as part of the withdrawal effort of all U.S. troops. And so the Marines went over there, and this is back when desert boots were still relatively new. And so when the Marines got to Mogadishu, we were still all rocking what we used to call black Cadillacs, the old black boots and jungle boots. Marines are known, I think, worldwide as being fairly aggressive fighting force, fairly aggressive people. And the Somalis got to know us pretty well by the fact that we wore black boots, and they started calling us the devils in black boots. And they knew pretty quickly, they learned pretty quickly to stay away from the devils in black boots. When you saw the guys with black boots walking around, you didn't mess with them, because unlike the soldiers, they would not take a lot of a lot of mess from you. As a matter of fact, it was kind of funny on the front gate. We had a couple of infantry Marines when the grunts finally showed up, and one of them I remember was he was I believe a mortarman, but he was 6'6" and probably 270 pounds if he was an inch. Flaming red hair, massive, massive. Could have played in the NFL. And they put him out front, and he carried an axe handle, and he had obviously a M16, but he had that axe handle, and he was not shy about using it, and he kept law and order up there on the front gates, and he was one of those devils in black boots. So we're going to talk about again, what's it like being a scout sniper, and it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to show some. I've got some hopefully amusing pictures for everybody. And so let me pull a couple of these up, and hopefully you guys will get a kick out of them. I don't show these to a lot of folks. Let me get it better. So at the very top, I think that was a picture of me on, kind of a setup poser picture of me. I think that was actually graduation day Scout Sniper School, me just in a ghillie veil, trying to look cool. I think my sister or somebody took that picture. On the bottom, I'm showing this picture because it's something that civilians probably would not understand and think that we were making the story up if we explained it. So when you are inserting and extracting, particularly in like jungle places or even urban environments that are very hard to get in and out of, we often use a technique called special insertion and extraction, or what's called SPY. And believe it or not, you will wear a harness oftentimes underneath your equipment, or your packs and everything. And the harness has a D ring attached to it, and the helicopter will fly over, and they'll drop a rope out of it, and you will simply attach your D ring to another D ring that's embedded into this 1.25 inch nylon rope, and the helicopter takes off with you attached, and it simply flies away, and you hang like a spider underneath this helicopter as it's flying, and depending, they can fly, fairly low, and sometimes they can fly fairly high. And you're probably asking yourself, Chris, what are the safety measures should the rope break? And the answer is none. The safety brief is we'll try to get you over water. And I was actually what's called a spy master. So I would oftentimes be the guy in the helicopter later on in my career that would, and I'm not making this up, you carry an axe because if there's a problem with the bird, you sacrifice the guys on the line as opposed to letting the bird go down with everybody. So it is. I've jumped out of a lot of planes. I will tell you, I like the ride on a spy line better than I like actually jumping out of a plane. It's something that you cannot replicate. If Disney could allow you to do it, they would make billions and billions of dollars. So, what is the life of a scout sniper actually like? Well, when you're being a scout sniper, the Marine Corps, it's a little bit different. So, a scout, oh, by the way, the background of my new rock and green screen is actually a beach in Somalia. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. But since we're talking about Somalia, I thought I would show you guys a beach. Absolutely stunning beaches out there. Um, the Marine Corps sniper program is a bit different than most other services. And you'll notice that the Marine Corps, now again, they have disbanded after 80 years, but they called them scout snipers. Now the Marine Corps only has scouts. And the scout part is really the critical part. The vast majority of your job in the Marine Corps as a scout sniper was reconnaissance. And that's why the scout part was so important. So you were the eyes and the ears of the battalion commander for up to 5 kilometers beyond what's called the forward line of troops. I believe it was the forward line of troops or the forward edge of the battle area. But basically, um, for 5 kilometers out into the badlands where the bad guys were, that's where you kind of operated generally. A little further out, a little further back, whatever, but generally about 5 kilometers out is where you'd operate. Beyond that would become kind of battalion reconnaissance. Much deeper would be force reconnaissance, things like that. But you did a lot of reconnaissance, so the vast majority of your job was sneaking and peeking. And taking lots of reports, calling for fire, and that was a big part of your job, is just laying there for hours and days on end with binoculars, cameras, sketch pads, just writing reports, calling in reports, so that the battalion commander and the intelligence officer, you actually reported to the two shop, which is the intelligence shop. So all of your reports went into the intelligence shop, which would disseminate it into, obviously, to the battalion commander, who would give it to the relevant company commander. So the vast majority of your job was actually reconnaissance. And as a sniper, you unlike the movies like to show snipers as always having these discrete missions where you're going out hunting down these super high value targets. Now, in certain cases, that may happen. That often didn't happen in my case, but there were cases that would happen. Um, Now, there typically, as a sniper, you would have what are called targets of opportunity. Okay, so if you're laying there doing your job, reconnaissance or whatever, and you see a general coming by, guess what? That's a target of opportunity. You're going to take a general out. If you see a dog handler coming by, certainly a target of opportunity. And so, without making it sound too gruesome, there are certain things that are targets of opportunity that you would always take a shot at, because it would instill fear into the troops and slow them down. So when you look at what a scout sniper does, it really is a force multiplier. And the old Soviet doctrine about Marine Corps scout snipers, if they felt there was a scout sniper in a what's called a grid square kilometer, right? Like, let's say within a square kilometer, they thought there was a scout sniper, they would essentially, carpet bomb every grid square around it to try to get them out, because it was such a terrifying aspect to have them, because a single sniper team could slow down an entire battalion. I mean, just make them come to a crawl. And some of the things that you would do, I mean, if you think about it, targets of opportunity, what they call green troops. You've got 50 brand new, kids coming into country that have never been in there, wearing brand new, starched utilities, and they're all, rah, 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 here we go. And the first one that steps off that plane now gets shot and is laying there in a puddle of blood. The other 49 now are not really in the mindset to play very hard, and so, that goes out the window. Um, you've got a dog team that comes in, radio operators, another target of opportunity. The guys carrying the radios on their back. Well, guess what? Those are targets of opportunity. Officers, there you go, targets of opportunity. If you look at what was happening in Ukraine, the Russians apparently lost 12 general officers to snipers within the first, I guess, 6 months of the war. The Ukrainian snipers were just having a field day because the Russians were really having a hard time with communications, and so they were using personal cell phones. The Ukrainians were triangulating on the cell phones, and the snipers were going after them. So again, the vast majority. Sorry, guys, allergies are getting me today. The vast majority of your job is reconnaissance, but you do have targets of opportunity that you're always allowed to kind of take shots at, and then occasionally you will be asked to go after other targets. But the vast majority of your job. And so, what kind of reconnaissance would you do? Well, you might be asked to do what's called a route recon. So, for example, in a battalion, let's say Alpha Company needs to move from point A to point B to set up for an ambush. You would be asked as a particular sniper team to conduct a route reconnaissance and find the appropriate route that would get them there, quickly, find out if there's any enemy on the way, if there's potential ambushes, booby traps, things like that. And so you'd go out there and recon that route, come back, brief the captain, and then act as a guide to get them out there. You might be asked to do, a bridge recon where you'd go out and say, okay, let's go, check out and make sure this bridge is, safe or whatever the case is. Or hey, there's a creek out here. There's been a lot of rain. Let's see if it's fordable. Just all kinds of reconnaissance. You may just be asked to sit out there and, hey, count troops. See if you've got troops going by. Just sit there and watch and be the eyes and ears. Set up observation post, listening post. And again, eyes and ears, because combat works on intelligence. So that's what you're providing, is the intelligence for the commander. And so a lot of people think that, being a sniper is really just this very dynamic. You're always out there. 99.9% of your job is laying in the weeds, being very very bored. But anyways, you do have some fun times. So on the top right is Chris and Toby. Toby's there on the left, making a goofy face, and here's me right in the middle. And on the very far right, you can't see him, his name is Otto Hecht. You'll see a couple more pictures. Of course, we had to do a dog and pony show. Once everybody wants to see the snipers when there's a dog and pony show and a military equipment demonstration. So we had to go out there, and I think at this point we were like hiding, and then at a certain point we had to pop up, and the whole audience was like, ooh, look, we didn't even see the snipers are out there. The bottom picture is an island that's no longer in use. It used to be a military training center called Viegas. It's down in the Caribbean, and absolutely beautiful island. And that's me carrying a 50 caliber sniper rifle. Actually, it's not a sniper rifle; it's a special application scoped rifle, is what they call it. Up a mountain, but yeah, it's about a 37-pound rifle, and the ammo is about 20 pounds. And I look like I'm super happy having to carry that thing over my shoulder. It's a fun thing to carry. But yeah, so you do carry a lot of weight a lot of times. Now back to the Somalia trip. So this is fascinating. This is a kind of an interesting side of Marine Corps sniper history. A lot of people don't know. So we were on the 2-4 Mu SOC, Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable. And as soon as we took off, we went blackout. We weren't allowed to communicate back with our families or anything else. And they said, look, we're not actually going to be going to the Mediterranean. We are now going to Somalia. And so as we're getting over there, word came out that Joint Special Operations Task Force 5 requested Marine Corps snipers in support of their mission. And they wanted us specifically. Now, there was a SEAL team on board with us, and they got pretty angry that they were not requested by the Green Berets, who were leading Joint Special Operations Task Force 5 over there, to support them. And so they came down to our platoon commander and challenged us to a shoot off, right? To the shooting competition to see who got that mission. And so our platoon commander picked 4 snipers from our team. and the SEALs picked 4 snipers from their team. By the way, I was not one of the 4 picked to represent us in that, but we sent 4 snipers and pretty much, mopped the floor with the SEALs. Hey, I got a lot of good SEAL friends. They've got some amazing shooters. In this particular case, our guys won the day, and I'm not saying that overall that's always the case. In this particular case, 30 years ago, we won the day. So we got sent over there. So we ended up flying over. Now on the right hand side on the top, that's actually me, flying into Somalia. And as you can see, the only thing I'm carrying there, I got my little Kevlar on and stuff. And you see that I've got my sniper rifle, I've got my M16, and the muzzles are pointed down. If you're wondering why, for the civilians that are watching this, well, in helicopters, the rotor blades are above you, right? And so if you happen to have a round in the chamber and the rifle goes off, you'd rather shoot through the floor of the helicopter than shoot through the rotor blade. So you always point the muzzles down. And so we had gone over there, and we were told initially we were only going to go over for 2 days, just to get things set up, then come back to the ship. So we didn't take anything but weapons and ammo. That's it. And that ended up not being the case, like a lot of things in the military. So we went over there, nothing but we carried weapons and ammo. On the bottom is when we finally ended up dropping. We did a couple of different drops in Somalia, but that's one of the drops of some of the grunts that were coming in with a CH-46, and we were zeroing the weapons. Just kind of a cool picture, I thought. And then on the top right, that's me behind the 50 caliber sniper rifle, just zeroing the weapons. And again, for those that are unfamiliar with the term zeroing, anytime every rifle shoots unique to the environment, and every person shoots uniquely. So if I get behind a rifle you shoot, it's going to shoot differently for me because my eyesight is different and I perceive things differently. So you have to adjust the scope for the way you shoot and the way you perceive things through the optics. And then, of course, depending on things like heat, humidity, elevation, things like that, you always have to adjust it. So it's what we call zeroing the weapon. So that's me on the top, zeroing a 50 caliber special application scoped rifle. On the bottom, that is Stephen Kraft. He's been a New York City police officer for, gosh, I think he may have just retired or getting ready to, but he's been over there for, gosh, I think 20 some odd years. And he and I were both hostage rescue team snipers. And you can see behind us the direct action team from Second Force Recon rocking some old school gear, MP5 SDs with the Oakley shades there, but yeah, definitely old school. And we're wearing the chocolate chip camis, but we were just doing some hostage rescue practice there. As I said, the beaches in Somalia, that's the picture that you're seeing behind me. You cannot overstate just how beautiful the beaches were in Somalia. I mean, just absolutely stunning beaches. Now, on the downside, they were absolutely filled with sharks. And the reason for that is Somalia variously was run by the Italians, I think the French, the Spanish, and the Soviets had a big presence there. And they had a slaughterhouse right on the coast of Mogadishu, or on the beach right there in Mogadishu. And what they would do is when they'd slaughter all the animals, they would dump all the offal, or the innards and all the stuff they don't want, into the water. Well, it became a shark breeding ground. So you could go to the beach, and I believe when we were there were 3 or 4 UN workers that had been eaten by the sharks there. So beautiful beaches. But yeah, I definitely didn't want to go swimming out there by yourself because there were a lot of sharks. But I mean, just absolutely stunning beaches. Kind of a funny story. So when we go over there, military intelligence, and that is, if you've never heard of a contradiction in terms, the term military intelligence is the very definition of a contradiction in terms. So as we're going over there, they're telling us, look, Somalis don't like the water, so you don't really have to worry about Somalis in the water. Well, not only was that incorrect. So one morning about 05 a.m. or 05, that's a redundant, but 05, we see this lone Somali walking along with a scuba tank on his on his back and a spear gun, just like he's. We were kind of making a joke that we're like, that must be the Somali Navy SEAL team. But more amusing is where I took this picture. If you see those rock ledges right there, There were Somali kids up there as young as 5 years old just jumping off into the water, like, absolutely fearless, fearless, and I was like, "Well, at least they told us Somalis don't like water." On the bottom is my, good friend Kurt and I, just standing we were patrolling one day, and, here we go, there's some Somalis in the background. You'll notice I'm wearing a covering over my face, and the reason for that is, if you ever heard the expression "Africa hot," Somalia gets hot. And you're actually cooler by keeping yourself covered up because the sun out there will absolutely, absolutely scalp you. It is brutally, brutally, brutally hot out there. So, excuse the little bit of sniper humor here. So, when we showed up in Somalia, and again, back to the interesting story about it. So, we actually showed up to work with the Green Berets who were running the show over in Mogadishu. So, we show up there and we fly into an old post office, and we're met in a Humvee by a bunch of Green Berets. Now we're young snipers. You can see how young I was there. I was, whatever, mid 20s. And these, Green Berets are, probably, mid 30s. And Green Berets, if you know anything about them, consummate professionals. These guys had full beards, and I mean, consummate professionals. And here we are, young snipers, being able to work with these guys. And so they show up, they grab us, and we integrate with their team. And we're actually part of not their team, but I mean, we're being tasked with running sniper missions by their teams, right? And it was absolutely an amazing, amazing experience. And it's one of those few things. And I remember one day, uh, we had been running some missions, and Otto, who, by the way, I went to his retirement. Gosh, I guess it's been going on 2 years now. He was my spotter. The On the bottom picture on the far right, Otto Hecht retired after 30 years as the senior enlisted Marine in all of Marine Corps Special Operations. And so I went to his retirement, and, he gave me a call out. He was actually my spotter before he was even a sniper, and he stayed in the Marine Corps and, became the senior enlisted Marine as a master gunnery sergeant in all of Marine Corps Special Operations. And I got a call out by him, but we had just come off a mission, and Otto, he grew a beard pretty quickly, and he was, his camis were dirty and everything. And the rest of the MEU had just come in. And so some staff sergeant, belt fed staff sergeant, starts dressing down Otto because, he's not clean shaven or whatever. And it was awesome because the special forces captain went up to that staff sergeant, Marine Corps staff sergeant, and just started saying, "Don't ever talk to my men like that again." And I was like, "Wow, we're his men. Here we are, these, young Marines, but we're his men because we're on his team." And I thought that was really cool. So yeah, we actually worked for a brief period of time for these special forces over there. So the picture here is on top of the embassy. So this is just a team relaxing. That's Sumner, Otto, and I think that's Doc. I can't tell which Doc that is in the background. And then, and if you don't know, in the Marine Corps, every medical person, every corpsman is just euphemistically called Doc. It's a term of honor. The Marine Corps doesn't have its own medical personnel. It's always Navy personnel, but don't have any illusions. They are just as tough as every single Marine out there. They do all the training that we do, plus they keep us alive. So, Doc is the lifesaver of the Marines, but just because they're in the Navy and they grow long hair and they manage to get out of all the working parties, and they can put their hands in their pockets, they're just as tough as all the Marines, and they're just called Doc. A little bit of sniper humor on the top, as you can tell. We put this 3.6 stay sniper shooting gallery. If you shoot a technical, which is a truck with either a recoilless rifle in the back or a machine gun, a Dishka, something like that, you get a trip to Honolulu. If you shoot an RPG, you get a year's worth of Red Man chewing tobacco. And if you shoot a Sammy, what we called the Somalis Sammies, the Rangers called them skinnies. Well, you got a pat on the back. Just sniper humor. I hope that didn't offend anybody. We're young snipers, and again, just guys chilling on top of the embassy in 120-degree African heat. Now on the top picture, this is a view from what's called the soap factory. So if you watched Black Hawk Down, to give some perspective on this picture, so on Black Hawk Down, this picture. Let's see if I can blow this up. I don't know if I can actually full screen layout. No, it's not doing it that well. So on that picture, towards the very, very far left, that is actually where you saw Black Hawk Down going down, where the hotel was when they first got into the big firefight and the guy fell out of the helicopter. So this gave you almost a full view all the way around. I'm not going to go into too many details, but we had, there were snipers up there for a reason. A lot of bad guys hung around this area, and so there was quite a few engagements from this place. It was called the Soap Factory because it used to be an old soap factory, and it was just a big building now with nothing but kind of girders. And so we would rotate in and out, and it was actually inside of an Egyptian compound. And it was kind of a weird experience because on the outside you had the Somalis who would be, shooting it up, and the Egyptians would be shooting back at them. We'd be shooting at them, and it's just kind of a weird experience. But we happened to be in Mogadishu during Ramadan, so during Ramadan, Muslims don't eat during the day; they fast during the day. Well, at night, what would happen is everybody would stop shooting at each other. The Egyptians would open the gates to their compound. The Somalis would come in, and they would all eat together and high five or whatever. And then the Somalis would go out of the gate. The next morning, they're right back at it again. I thought that was just odd, but whatever. The bottom picture is a very handsome young man named Chris Mark in one of the overt positions. And you can see I've got a range card up there, and we got a couple of rifles, and there I am behind my rifle, the Ugly Duckling. I had taken a different rifle over there, and unfortunately, it was having some accuracy issues. We don't know why, and so I had to pick up another one. And it was a very ugly looking rifle, so I named it the Ugly Duckling. But it was very, very accurate, thank goodness. So when we were in Somalia, we had a couple of different types of positions we would use. We would use overt positions, and this is where you wanted the Somalis to know that there were snipers. And for example, where you'd have big crowds congregating, and kind of, if they had a tendency to act up, you wanted them to be able to look up there and go, oh, those are devils in black boots with long guns up there, and that would kind of make sure that they behave themselves, because they would realize that, hey, I can't really get away with anything even if I'm in the middle of a crowd, because these people have the capability of singling me out. So those overt positions, this is one of them. I think this is Blaster 2 or something. We named them Blaster 1 through whatever. And I think this is Blaster 2. And then we had clandestine positions where we didn't necessarily want them to know we were. We were just keeping eyes on, again, very kind of secretively, and kind of watching and seeing what's going on, calling in intelligence and things like that. But this is an overt position that was looking out over a road called Via Casera, where they tended to do that. Now in Somalia, the Somalis were interesting people. They'd get up in the morning and they would start eating this leafy thing called khat, I think KHAT, and it has amphetamines in it. It's a natural amphetamine, and they'd start chewing that stuff, and they chew it all day. And boy, by about 2 or 3 p.m., boy, they were itching for a fight. And I tell you what, watching these kids over there start throwing down with each other. There's some tough people. Make no mistake, there were some tough people, in my opinion. I mean, they would throw down, but they would chew cot all day, and they would throw down. But it was a very sad experience as well. And here's a funny experience. Otto, I was telling you about Otto, the guy that he became a senior enlisted Marine at all of MARSOC. So on this particular position, it backed up to, you can't tell from right here, but if you were to look over my left shoulder, that's where the gates to the Newport were, where I was telling you they had that big giant Marine would stand out there. So they would open those gates. And if you were to go through, that's where the Newport was. And if you ever saw Black Hawk Down, that's where the big hangar was, right? Where they had all of the folks, the Rangers and everybody. And so they had these huge gates out there, but it also had a fence, and a bunch of kids would go out there and try to trade with you and stuff like that. And there was a wall, not a fence, a wall, but there was a little hole in the wall. So these kids are out there, and Otto was a big, big hunter. He still is, loves to fish and hunt, and really an outdoorsman. So his kids show up, little kids, probably 9, 10 years old, rail thin. And they unroll this snake skin, and man, this thing's got to be 20 feet long. I mean, it's huge. And they're like, American, American. They're like, look, look, look. And Otto sees that in his eyes. It's almost like a cartoon. His eyes get huge, and he's like, Mark, I've got to get this. Do you have $10? Do you have $10? I'm like, dude, they're going to rip you off. I said, they're going to take your money and I'm going to laugh. And he goes, no, give me 10 bucks. Trust me. I said, all right, man. I said, it's your money to lose. I don't care, man. So I give him, I think it was like 10 bucks. Give him my 10 bucks. So he goes down there and so he's holding the 10 bucks like away from the wall, right? He's holding it away from the wall. And the kids are putting it, they're about to do the deal, and he's reaching to get that snake skin, and all of a sudden, this tiny little hand shoots through that hole in the wall, grabs the $10, and Otto reaches through and grabs that snake skin, and now you've got like a tug of war, right? So the kid manages to get the 10 bucks, and now Otto has got both hands on the snake skin and he's not letting it go. Well, the snake skin rips, and he literally gets about this much as that snake skin's head. And those little kids get the 10 bucks and they run off giving him the one-fingered salute. And it was absolutely one of the funniest things I've seen to this day. I still remember it 30 years later. Absolutely hilarious. Kids out there were hilarious. But yeah, stories like that just abound. And then you would see some weird things. We would have to stand post all night, all morning, whatever, in these overt positions. And one day, Otto and I are out there, and you always want to keep your eyes open as snipers because you never know. Weird stuff always happens. And we're looking down the road and see something coming. You can't tell the sun's coming up. They don't have street lights or electricity. Something's happening. And I'm looking through the scope and I'm just trying to figure out. I'm like, what the heck is this coming down the road, man? Right down the middle of the road, and it's coming really slowly. And I'm like, heck is that? And he gets closer and the sun's coming up. I realize it's this Somali guy, and he's got a wheelbarrow and he's pushing it. And in the wheelbarrow is probably a 400-pound sea turtle on its back, still alive, with its legs flailing. And somehow this dude has gotten this sea turtle in the wheelbarrow, put it on its back. And I don't know, maybe he was going to go eat it or something, but he's just casually pushing it down the road like it was like the most normal thing in the world. And I was like, oh, okay, man. Have a nice day, buddy. All right, so here's some other funny stories. That's Otto on the bottom left. That's Otto on the bottom left with a loadout in one of the positions that we're at, and you can see the butt of a rifle. You can see an M16 with an M203 grenade launcher. He's carrying one of the rifles. You can see all the grenades and pop-up flares and M203, HE high explosive grenades and all that kind of stuff in front of him. We carried a bunch of weaponry with us, obviously, loaded for bear. At that point, he was probably a whopping 165 pounds. He's probably about 240 pounds now, much bigger. And on the right hand side on the bottom, that is my rifle, the ugly duckling that I was talking about. Terrible, terrible looking rifle. We were allowed, snipers are allowed to paint their own rifles. Because again, when you go out, depending on where you're going to be, you want it to blend in with the terrain. So we were given special dispensations to paint our own rifles. I picked this one up simply because mine had accuracy issues. This particular rifle is super accurate, but boy, was it ugly. So the picture on the top, that's a really interesting one. The gentleman's face is blurred out because at the time that I had originally posted this picture, he was still doing some government work for a 3-letter agency and doing some really like neat stuff that I'm not really at liberty to talk about on here. So I just blanked it out. But so again, this kind of stuff does happen once in a while in the military, and it's really fascinating when you get a chance to talk about it. So our platoon commander comes to us and goes, and he was a great sniper. I think he was our high shooter. His name's Bill Cook, and absolutely great, great guy. Dad of a couple of girls. He brews beer for a living now. He's got I think a couple of master's degrees, speaks a few languages. I mean, absolutely, international man of mystery. But our platoon commander comes to us and goes, Mark Cook, you guys are going to be flying over to the other side of Mogadishu. You're going to jump on a cruise ship. So the Army was hiring cruise ships to sail the Army back to the United States, if you can believe that. I mean, that's not a bad way to go. So the Somalis were shooting RPGs at the cruise ships, so they wanted snipers on these cruise ships to, keep the Somalis at bay from, with the RPGs. So of course, as young Marines, we're going to complain about everything, and we're complaining about it, and we're like, oh, we don't want to do that. Come on, Gunny, really? So of course we get on a Russian hip helicopter. And if you've never flown on a Russian helicopter, They're not like American helicopters. Now, American helicopters, when you get in, they've got dials and gauges and all kinds of things and switches and man, it's like, it's like it's like an X-wing fighter from Star Wars. It's got so much stuff in it. You get in a you get in a Russian helicopter and it's got like a fuel gauge and a tachometer and that's it, and a stick. I mean, this thing's like from the 1940s. So we get in a Russian helicopter and we somehow manage to land and we get over there and we show up and I mean, this thing is like a cruise liner. I mean, this is beautiful. We get on there and we go introduce ourselves to the team and, the whoever the captain, he's like, are you gentlemen hungry? And we're like, yes, sir, we are. And he was like, well, come on down. And we're like, what do you guys have to eat? And he's like, this is a cruise liner. What do you guys want? Our chef will make it. And we're like, really? So we get the food. Of course, Otto's with me as well. It's not just Bill and I, but Otto's there, and I forget who Bill's spotter was at the time. I think it was Flory, maybe. And so no, he was a sniper. So I forget who his spotter was, but we're all there, four of us, and so we get our meal, and then we're setting up the sniper rifles, and I think it was Otto goes over and he's doing a once over the ship just to make sure it's secure and everything. And he looks down at the pool and there's a bunch of Polish stewardesses laying out topless by the pool. And there's nobody on the ship except the crew, right? And now us, these, knucklehead snipers. And all these Polish stewardesses are topless by the pool. So he comes up and goes, hey, man, bunch of topless women down by the pool. And here we are in the middle of, Mogadishu, for goodness sakes. And we're like, this is like so surreal. So we're down there now. We obviously we're not trying to talk to him or whatever, but it was just a really interesting experience. So that night, Otto goes down to the galley and he comes up and he's got like 2 gallons of ice cream. So we're sitting there eating ice cream. We've got our sniper rifles set up and we're like, man, this is a life. So I call back to Gunny and I go, Gunny, we think now that we've got the lay of the ship down and we've got the sniper pause set up and we kind of know what's going on. It's probably a good idea to keep continuity of teams here because, if you switch us out, they're going to have to really, man, Gunny wasn't falling for that. He knew right away. He's like, Mark, that's bullshit. You guys have something going on. I'm coming out there. So he comes flying out and he, of course, figured out the scam and he goes, look, guys, he goes, I get it. This is a good gig, he goes, but we got to share the love. So we only got to spend a couple days there. But so what ended up happening is when the sun started going down, the stewardesses were all coming up and wanting to take pictures with us with the big sniper rifles. So of course we would take pictures and, we'd take one with their camera and one with our camera. So that's a picture of, with I don't know, Bill called her Rada Tatasha, some Polish stewardess, and she was a very, very pretty young lady. But yeah, just that's the kind of stuff that happens in sometimes in combat zones. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience to be over in Somalia again, working for the special forces and having that experience. And what really struck me about that is when we first went over there, and we were set up in their camp, right? And like everybody, hey, combat zones are combat zones. You have to do duty. So that first night, I get called to go, do pull duty on the machine gun, perimeter watch at like, I don't know, like 02 or something. And so, I go out there, it's not a big deal. And I go out there and I see the guy behind the weapon and I go, hey man, I'm here to relieve you. And he turns around and it's actually the special forces captain that's out there. Major, actually, it was major. It was Major Chris Allen, and he's out there, pulling duty like every other special forces guy would. And I was like blown away. I'm like, hey, sir, sorry, I didn't know you're out here. He's like, no, 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 got to pull duty. And what really struck me about that is here's this special forces major that I'm relieving as a young, I think I was a corporal at the time. And, as a team, those guys were great. We learned so much from them. And it was really, really interesting because it's a part of history that a lot of people don't know that here we are as young Marines being attached to the Green Berets. So fast forward about, oh gosh, this probably happened about 10 years ago. So a good friend of mine who was a Harrier pilot and then later on became a MARSOC Marine FAC is sitting in a special operations class somewhere in Fort Bragg or wherever. And somebody was writing a book about the history of special operations. And he brought up and he said, I heard a rumor that there were Marine snipers attached to the Green Berets in Somalia. Does anybody have any information on that? And he goes, actually, he goes, I do. He said, a very, very good friend of mine actually was one of those snipers. So the Green Beret actually called me up. He was one of the historians or something. He was writing the book. It was an internal book for the Green Berets, and so I spent like a couple of hours on the phone with him telling him the story. And he ended up, I guess, publishing that for him. But it was just kind of a very cool experience to be able to do that. But again, just wanted to give a little bit of insight. I know I was probably rambling, but a little bit of insight on what it's like to be a sniper and some of the missions you run and things you do and kind of day to day life. And that's it. You don't shower very much. You don't eat very much. You're always the very skinny people, and you spend your life in the field, basically being bitten by bugs. And if you don't like that kind of lifestyle, you certainly don't want to be a sniper. Again, you spend your days and days and days crawling on your belly. I remember one particular time we had to run a mission. Like everything in the military, you have qualifications, right? So you have to do your SOC qual, special operations capable quals. You have to do all these quals, and you have judges that will make sure that you're doing things correctly. And so as you're going through your qualifications, they give you missions. And because I was one of the four maritime special purpose force urban qualified snipers, right, hostage rescue supporting snipers, we had to run this one mission where we had to go out and do this. Well, it just so happened I caught the flu, right? And if you've ever had the flu, you know how you just feel terrible. Well, we had, I think, about I don't know, maybe a 6 or 7 click movement in, carrying all of our gear, and it's of course cold and it's raining, and I mean I'm one of the only guys that can go, so I have no choice. So here I am, middle of the night, just feeling miserable, doped up on Theraflu, just trying to make it. I lay down there. We're supposed to take the shot. I think at like, I don't know, like midnight or something. I don't even know. And of course, they have some kind of frag order come in. Something happens, and so of course it gets delayed. We lay there all night, just freezing, and I've got the flu. Finally, end up taking the shot at like 07 or something like that. So here I've just been out there with the flu, just being rained on all night, just miserable, soaking wet. And then we finally take the shot, and we've got a long movement out of there. And to give credit, my platoon commander, just an amazing guy named Gunny Kerr, comes over and he goes, Mark, he goes, just lay here. He goes, I called at the time, he was married to a woman named Dana. He goes, I called Dana, just bringing my truck out. He goes, just get in the damn truck. She's going to take you back to the barracks. So I didn't have to make the movement out. But, unfortunately, your life is spent being cold, wet, and hungry. And that is the life of the sniper. And if you don't like that, you don't want to be a sniper. It's not a lot of glory. A lot of pulling ticks and leeches out of places you don't want to pull ticks and leeches out of, and a lot of being hungry. So really appreciate everybody that listens. Again, you can always read my musings on globalriskinfo.com. And thank you so much for listening, and have a happy, happy, happy Easter, everybody. Thank you.